High upon a trembling mountain, where thunder shook the skies and fire wrapped the peaks in blinding brilliance, a moment unfolded that would shape the destiny of nations. The earth quaked, the heavens roared, and amidst the storm stood one man, Moses. The people waited below in fear and awe, not knowing what divine command would descend from the summit. What happened on Mount Sinai was not just history, it was the birth of a covenant, carved not by human hands, but written by the very finger of God. From that sacred height came 10 laws, 10 timeless truths, that became the moral backbone for billions across centuries. These were not mere rules for a wandering tribe, they were the foundation of justice, mercy, and divine order. Do not kill, do not steal, honor your parents, worship only God, words that echo not only in the Bible but are also mirrored in the Quran, where Allah speaks of guidance inscribed on the tablets given to Moses. This was no ordinary moment. It was heaven reaching down to earth. A covenant sealed in stone, unshaken by time, unbroken by empires, unforgotten by faith. Whether you are Christian, Muslim, or simply a seeker of truth, the 10 Commandments remain a living testimony to humanity's eternal need for guidance and purpose. Stay with us as we journey back into the fire and thunder of Sinai, to uncover not only what these commandments were, but why they still matter today. This is more than a story, it is a voice from eternity, calling us to remember who we are and who we were meant to be. If you believe these ancient lessons still hold power in our modern world, make sure to subscribe and join us as we unfold the sacred path together. When Moses ascended Mount Sinai, it was not just the climb of a prophet, it was the rise of a man chosen to carry the very words of God. The people of Israel, weary from slavery and wandering, had gathered at the foot of the mountain. They had seen the Red Sea part before their eyes, they had watched manna fall from the heavens, and yet their hearts still wavered. They needed more than miracles, they needed direction, a law to guide them through the wilderness and into a covenantal life with their Creator. It was on this trembling mountain that heaven's voice was carved into stone. The Bible describes it with thunder, lightning, smoke, and the blast of a trumpet so loud that the people trembled in fear. Exodus 19 verses 16 to 19. God himself descended upon the mountain in fire, and the summit shook violently. Moses alone walked into the cloud of divine presence, where he received the 10 Commandments, etched by what Scripture calls, the finger of God, Exodus 31 verse 18. These were not merely rules of a nation, but the heartbeat of divine will, principles of faithfulness, justice, and mercy that would bind a people to their Creator. The Quran too testifies to this sacred event, and we wrote for him on the tablet something of all things, admonition and explanation for all things, saying, hold to them firmly and enjoin your people to take the best of it. Surah Al-Araf 7:145. The tablets carried not only laws, but lessons, a divine framework for life itself. Among these commands were words that echo across both scriptures: worship God alone, honor your parents, avoid murder, theft, and falsehood. These timeless truths were not confined to the Israelites, they were universal, speaking to every soul seeking righteousness. Imagine the scene: below the mountain, thousands waited, trembling in both fear and anticipation. Families huddled together, children clung to their parents, and elders whispered prayers. In their hearts, they knew that what Moses would bring down from the summit would not be another story or another miracle, but the very covenant that would define their identity for generations. The law was not just a restriction, it was liberation, the kind of guidance that transforms chaos into order, fear into hope, and wandering into purpose. And when Moses finally descended, his arms carrying the tablets of stone, the people did not just see commandments, they saw the evidence of a God who had chosen to speak to them, to guide them, and to call them his own. This was a turning point, not just for Israel, but for humanity. For in those 10 divine words lay the essence of morality, the boundaries of justice, and the promise that true freedom is found not in doing as we please, but in living as God commands. The 10 Commandments were more than just divine words carved into stone, they were the blueprint for how humanity was meant to live in harmony with God and with each other. When Moses stood before the trembling Israelites and read aloud the covenant, it was not only their ears that heard, but their hearts that were pierced. Imagine thousands of people, just freed from generations of slavery, finally hearing what it meant to be truly free. True freedom was not to live without boundaries, but to live within the boundaries that protect life, honor, and faith. The first commandments established the foundation of worship, to recognize only one true God, to never bow before idols, and to revere His name. This was radical in a world overflowing with false gods and idols, where nations bowed to stone, wood, and stars. The Bible declares, "You shall have no other gods before me," Exodus 20 verse 3, and the Quran confirms this timeless truth in countless verses, reminding believers to direct all devotion only to Allah. These opening commands were not about control, but about relationship. They set the stage for a bond built on love, loyalty, and reverence for the Creator. The next commandment spoke to family and society. To honor one's parents was to recognize the sacredness of life's beginning and the importance of respect that flows from generation to generation. In both the Quran and the Bible, this command is repeated with gravity. The Quran says, "And we have enjoined upon man, care, for his parents. His mother carried him, increasing her, in weakness upon weakness, and his weaning is in 2 years. Be grateful to me and to your parents, to me is the final destination." Surah Luqman 31:14. By placing this command so high on the list, God was declaring that respect for parents was not optional, it was sacred. Then came commands that defined justice: do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not covet what belongs to others. Each of these built a society where life was valued, truth was honored, and fairness was protected. They were safeguards not just for Israel but for all of humanity. Without these laws, communities fall into chaos. With them, they flourish. The 10 Commandments were therefore not a burden but a gift. They answered the questions that every generation has asked: how should we live? How do we treat one another? What does God require of us? They were given in an age of wandering deserts and tribal conflicts, yet their words echo even in our modern world of cities and technology. Whether in the Quran's call for justice, or the Bible's insistence on love of God and neighbor, the commandments stand as a beacon, reminding us that morality is not invented by man, but revealed by God. And so, as the Israelites stood at Sinai, they were not just receiving laws, they were being given an identity. They were no longer merely survivors of Egypt's oppression, they were God's people, chosen and guided by His eternal hand. The moment the 10 Commandments were delivered was not just about the words on stone, it was about transformation. These commands were designed to move people from being a wandering, uncertain nation into a community built upon divine order. Yet, as powerful as that moment was, the reality of human weakness quickly appeared. While Moses lingered on the mountain in communion with God, the people below grew restless. Their faith wavered, and they turned toward the familiar shadows of idolatry. They built a golden calf and bowed before it, seeking comfort in the image of something they could see rather than trusting the invisible Creator who had just rescued them from slavery. The Bible tells us that when Moses descended and saw this, his anger burned. He shattered the tablets in fury, not out of disrespect for God, but as a symbol of the covenant that the people had already broken. The Quran also recounts this tragedy, emphasizing how easily people forgot the mercy of their Lord, and Moses' people, after him, made from their ornaments a calf, an image having a lowing sound. Did they not see that it could neither speak to them nor guide them to a way? They took it for worship, and they were wrongdoers. Surah Al-Araf 7:148. This episode reveals a deep truth about the human condition. Even in the face of miracles, even after hearing the thunder of God on Sinai, people still falter. It is easier to bow to something visible than to trust in the unseen. The 10 Commandments were not given to a perfect people, but to a struggling, imperfect people, a reflection of all of us. God knew their weaknesses, yet He still chose to guide them. That is the power of divine mercy. Moses, though devastated, did not abandon his people. He returned to the mountain to intercede for them, pleading with God for forgiveness on their behalf. Both the Bible and the Quran highlight Moses' role as a prophet of intercession, a leader who carried not only the stone tablets, but the burden of his people's failures. Through his prayers, God showed mercy, allowing the covenant to continue, proving that his guidance is greater than human rebellion. This cycle of revelation, failure, and mercy teaches us something profound. The commandments were never about perfection but about direction. They were given to guide humanity toward the best version of themselves, even when they stumbled along the way. Each law was a reminder of God's desire for order and justice, but also of his compassion for those who fall short. Even today, when we reflect on the 10 Commandments, we see more than rules etched in stone, we see God's patience with humanity. We see his insistence that justice, honesty, and respect are not optional values, but eternal truths. We see that though humans may stumble into selfishness or idolatry, God continually calls them back, inviting them to walk in the light of his covenant. As the story of Sinai unfolded, the 10 Commandments became more than a set of words carved in stone, they became the living heartbeat of faith for generations to come. What made them extraordinary was not only that they were written by the finger of God, but that they addressed the deepest needs of humanity. They were not temporary rules for a desert tribe, but eternal principles for every age, every people, and every land. In the Bible, the words are framed as covenantal laws that set Israel apart as God's chosen people, Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5. In the Quran, these laws are echoed again and again in divine guidance, woven throughout verses that command justice, honesty, compassion, and loyalty to God alone, Surah Al-Isra 17. 22-39. What is striking is that while the commands are ancient, they remain as relevant as ever. Do not kill was not simply an instruction for a wandering nation in the wilderness, it is a law that shapes how societies today protect life and establish justice. Do not steal was not just about guarding possessions in a camp, it is a foundation for fairness in commerce, trust between neighbors, and integrity in communities. Do not bear false witness does more than regulate courts, it upholds truth itself in a world often drowned in lies. Even more profound is the command to honor one's parents. In an age where family bonds are often strained or neglected, this principle reminds us that gratitude and respect for those who gave us life is not only a duty but an act of worship. Both the Bible and the Quran elevate this truth. The Quran says, "And we have enjoined upon man, care, for his parents. Be grateful to me and to your parents," Surah Luqman 31:14. This pairing of devotion to God with respect for parents demonstrates that love for family is at the very core of divine law. Equally timeless is the command to avoid covetousness, to not let envy poison the soul. In modern times, where consumerism and comparison fuel endless dissatisfaction, this ancient wisdom calls us back to contentment and gratitude. It whispers that true peace is not found in what we crave, but in what we already have, given by the mercy of God. When we look at the 10 Commandments through both the lens of the Bible and the Quran, we see not contradiction, but harmony. Both scriptures point to the same moral truths: worship God alone, honor family, cherish life, protect truth, and preserve justice. This shared heritage binds believers across traditions, showing us that divine law was never meant to divide, but to unite humanity under one Creator. At Sinai, these commandments were thundered into existence, but their echo has never faded. From ancient prophets to modern seekers, they remain a compass pointing toward righteousness, a reminder that humanity was never meant to wander blindly, but to walk with guidance inscribed not only on stone, but on the heart. As the commandments were delivered, the mountains still trembled with echoes of thunder, and the people stood in awe, their hearts pierced with both fear and reverence. Yet beyond the sound and spectacle, something greater was happening. Humanity was being entrusted with a covenant that would outlast kingdoms, empires, and civilizations. These words carved in stone were more than laws, they were a mirror for the human soul, showing people not only what was forbidden but also who they were meant to become. The people of Israel saw in these commands the sign that they were chosen, set apart to be a nation shaped by justice and holiness. Later generations looked back to Sinai as the moment God's will became tangible, no longer hidden in mystery but written before their eyes. In the Quran, this same moment is remembered as a sacred trust, when divine revelation was given to guide people from darkness into light. The Quran reminds us that these laws are not burdens, but mercy, paths that protect life, preserve dignity, and draw hearts closer to their Creator. Think about it, without laws, life dissolves into chaos. Without truth, lies consume societies. Without respect for parents, family bonds collapse. Without contentment, envy eats away at the heart. And without reverence for God, even the greatest civilizations lose their way. The 10 Commandments are not relics of the past, they are timeless safeguards that hold together the fabric of human life. Across centuries, prophets and teachers carried these commandments forward, teaching that worship is not just ritual but obedience, and that faith is not just belief but action. Jesus in the Bible reminded his followers that the law was fulfilled through love, love of God and love of neighbor. The Quran echoes the same truth, declaring that righteousness is not empty ritual, but to believe, to give, to care, and to live with justice. Both scriptures meet in one timeless call: faith without mercy is hollow, and law without compassion is lifeless. And perhaps the most powerful part of the story is this: these commandments, though spoken on Sinai, were meant for every hill and every valley, every city and every home, every soul that longs for guidance. They cross the boundaries of religion, geography, and history, because at their heart they are not simply Israel's story or Arabia's story, they are humanity's story. Standing at Sinai, the people trembled before the mountain. Today, we may not see thunder or fire, but we stand at our own crossroads. The same choice remains before us: will we follow the path of truth, mercy, and justice, or will we turn away into shadows? The 10 Commandments invite us, just as they invited those who first heard them, to live not as wanderers lost in the wilderness, but as people guided by divine light. The mountain has grown silent, the tablets are no longer in human hands, but the commandments live on. They are written in every act of kindness, every defense of truth, every hand that refuses to harm, and every heart that bows in humility to the Creator. That is the eternal power of Sinai, laws carved not only in stone, but in the destiny of humankind. The mountain may no longer shake with thunder, and the fire of Sinai may no longer blaze before our eyes, but the voice that spoke there still echoes across time. The 10 Commandments were never just about stone tablets, they were about shaping the human heart. They remind us that faith is not only worship, but honesty, mercy, justice, and love. Whether you come to this story through the Bible, the Quran, or history itself, the message remains the same: God does not leave humanity without guidance. From the mountain of Sinai to the cities we live in today, these commandments still whisper to every soul, calling us to stand for truth, honor our families, respect life, and love the Creator above all. And now, as we close this chapter, ask yourself, what would the world look like if we truly lived by these laws? No corruption, no betrayal, no cruelty, only a world built on trust, compassion, and faith. That is not just history, that is hope for the future. If this journey through Sinai moved you, imagine what still lies ahead. The sacred path has only begun. Together, we will continue exploring the timeless stories of prophets and revelation, stories that shaped nations, inspired faith, and still have the power to change hearts today. So stay with us, subscribe, and join this journey across scripture, history, and faith. Because the path of truth does not end at Sinai, it begins there.